Alright, so here it is, the last episode of Season 4. The one the writers David Benioff and Dan Wise are saying is the best episode ever. Yeah, no, I wouldn't call it the best episode ever, but I would call it the best season finale ever, for sure. Especially if you compare it to Season 3's finale. Someone on Facebook last night said that the Season 3 finale was the worst episode ever, and yeah, I'd probably have to agree with that. I'll be touching on the season as a whole in another video, but until then, let's talk about episode 10, The Children. So we pick up right where we left off with Jon leaving the wall and going out to find Mance, and he's wading through this bird's eye view of all this destruction of dead giants and wildlings and all the aftermath of what we didn't see last time. And he lets himself be captured in order to treat with Mance. And negotiations go south, and all of a sudden we see those sweet flaming stag banners fly, baby. As you guys know, Stannis is one of my personal favorites. I've been waiting for this scene for years, since I read the books, really. I talked about how they really needed to get this right in an earlier video, and HBO, thank you so much, because you absolutely nailed it. I thought this was great. For the first time ever, I got to see this character that I absolutely adore be fully represented in the way that he should be. It was fantastic. I hope they keep it up next season. Easily the scene that I loved the most this episode. In my next video I'll talk about Team Dragonstone's story being a little bit shaky this season, but they absolutely stuck the landing. They really did. So moving on, the mountain's been poisoned, and ex-Maester Qyburn is starting to get to work on him. You have to hand it to Oberyn, though. He had the ultimate insurance to get his revenge in place, whether he won or not. Cersei and Tywin was a really great scene as well. Her kind of using this information about her and her brother, in order to hold it over his head to get out of marrying Loras. I always think that Cersei's at her best when she's expressing her love for her children. And, I mean, she's 100% correct in saying that for the rest of Tommen's life, he's gonna just be a pawn in someone else's agenda. And she has every, well, I don't want to say right, but she has every instinct to want to protect him from the people that are whispering in his ear. A scene I would have cut out completely was Cersei and Jaime. If they had followed the books and Tyrion had later revealed to Jaime that Cersei had been sleeping around on him, then I think it would have worked. But I mean, without that payoff, there wasn't really any need for it to be there. But hey, at least it looked a hell of a lot more consensual this time. The Daenerys scenes I felt could have been saved till next season, but that being said, I did really like them actually. She tells this one guy who's happier being a slave to make employee arrangements with his former master, but agreements that only last a year at a time so he doesn't get screwed over. And I'm thinking, wow, that's actually a pretty well thought out idea. I've really liked her story's themes of slavery not being a black and white issue. I mean, it is nowadays, obviously, but when you look at our real-life history, any enormous slave-driven society that's collapsed, it wasn't just sunshine and rainbows for everyone involved. You're talking about a major change in someone's life, and whether it's for better or for worse, you know, that transition is going to be anything but simple. The next scene was her locking up her dragons, because she obviously gets this really big wake-up call that, you know, they're really not safe. And it was actually a really thoughtful, non-dialogue moment that I really liked. Back at the wall we get this zombie prevention / mass cremation of the fallen from last episode. But Jon has a private funeral pyre for Ygritte, which was actually another thing that was slowed down and made a lot more sentimental due to the lack of dialogue. I don't know, I don't think that it really needed to be more emphasized by the discussion between Jon and Tormund. That being said, I'm kind of on the fence about Ygritte's funeral needing to be there at all. Because, you know, the viewer in me wanted to say, yes, it added a lot of atmosphere, it added a lot of emotion. But the analytical side of me says, no, they had their moment last time, we need to move on, we need to save our preciously small amount of screen time for something more valuable. So I'm on the fence as to whether to call it unnecessary filler or something that really emphasized the tone. It all depends on whether you want that sugary frosted emotional atmosphere or the unfrosted side that's analytical and let's move on to something more important. Team Bran finally makes it to their destination, but the skeletal wights pop up and attack them. I was saying on Facebook last night, something about them just bugged me so much. I don't know if it was just the CGI or the way they moved, but I don't know, I couldn't put my finger on what was bothering me so much about these skeletons. I know that's really pedantic, but maybe you guys in the comments can help me explain what it was about them a little bit better. I had a couple of people asking me on Facebook, what did I think of Jojen's death when, like Pip and Gren, he's very much alive in the books. I actually had a feeling that they were going to do this, if I'm being honest, because, I mean, reading between the lines of Jojen's current status in the books, it sort of seems like he's not going to be around that much longer anyways. It's heavily implied that he's not going to make it, and that was always kind of his role. He's kind of like the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Bran's Luke Skywalker, which I guess would make the Three-Eyed Raven Yoda? I suggest you check out my Bran Stark character analysis video if you want to see me talk about Bran in a way that isn't filled with Star Wars analogies. So, here's what I liked the least about this episode, and it's not because it wasn't in the books, it's just because it just seemed like way too big of a coincidence. Our two road trip groups of Arya and the Hound and Brienne and Podrick meet up somewhere outside the Vale. I mean, I guess the roads up to the Eyrie are pretty narrow, so it wouldn't be impossible for them to meet up, but I don't know. It seems to bring the scale down when you sort of have these two groups that just happen to run into each other. It makes the world feel a lot smaller. And besides that, we didn't really get anything from Brienne and the Hound fighting that we couldn't have gotten from the Hound just collapsing from the infected bite wound on his neck that he never did properly clean or cauterize. I'm really glad that Arya robbing the Hound and leaving him to die wasn't spoiled by some really god-awful one-liner. Nothing isn't better or worse than anything, Sander. But I am gonna take your shit. I'm actually really glad that they had a lot of non-dialogue moments this episode, because as I was saying in my episode 8 review, it's really been something that this season has needed. And finally we get to Jaime helping Tyrion escape. Just like I said earlier, because Tyrion doesn't tell Jaime that Cersei's been sleeping around on him, you sort of lose his big character setup for next season. I really love Tyrion's murder of both Shae and Tywin, and you know, I really do feel sorry for anyone else who's in Peter Dinklage's Emmy category. I think another one of my favorite moments was Varys opening the door and being like, "What the hell did you do?" And this isn't a criticism because I thought that everything about this scene went really well, but I was honestly surprised that Tywin's death wasn't a little bit more graphic, I guess I could say. And I don't mean with blood and gore, but I mean, when someone dies, it isn't uncommon for them to... I thought there'd be more poop, is what I'm trying to say. I thought there'd be more poop. And it wasn't necessarily anything I was looking for, but I just thought that given their track record this season for over-the-top deaths, that this would be where they went. Moving on. So, let's talk about something that, in my opinion, was an absolutely huge missed opportunity. And I don't want to go into book spoilers, but HBO, by not having your final shot of a certain character, you just missed out on having the biggest, most amazing cliffhanger possibly in television history. And, I mean, I know that they could have her in next season, but I don't think they realize what they passed up here. I really don't. Or, if they were that adamant about not having her, they should have at least had Bran finding the Three-Eyed Raven as the final cliffhanger, rather than Arya sailing away on a boat. I think that it would have been in their best interest to leave us with something eye-catching and bizarre and out of left field, rather than something sort of serene and contemplative. But, I mean, despite what I thought were a lot of missed opportunities, I definitely do maintain that this was the best season finale the show's ever had. But, definitely tell me what you guys thought, and be sure to like and subscribe as well. Both the Season 4 wrap-up and the Baratheon Brother character spotlight will be out soon. And don't forget to vote on who you want to see go head-to-head in Westeros Brawls. I've been Dancy, and I'll see you guys very soon.